Hello everyone and welcome to Project Insight's product training webinar. The topic for today is project request. Just a few things to note before we get started. All participants will be put on mute. Have any questions you have are more than welcome. Please go ahead and type those into your question box, which you can find on your GoToWebinar dashboard. We will try to answer all of your questions during the session, but if we can't, we'll make sure to get to you through email before the end of the day, or you can also feel free to email us your questions at info@projectinsight.net. Also, do know this webinar recording will be available within our Project Insight community. My name is Denise, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm on the marketing team here at Project Insight. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to reach me at denise.rodriguez@projectinsight.com. Our presenter and trainer for today will be Angie Smith. She's our partner out in Canada, and she is also PNP certified. Some of the benefits of today's webinar are to learn how to capture, analyze, review, and approve project requests. Also learn how to categorize your requests by type or assign them to someone else, and centralize project requests in a folder. On our agenda today, we'll go over how to display project requests on your dashboard. We'll learn how to create a project request and manage a project request. We'll also learn how to the approval workflow for the project request, automatically create a project request from the request, and close, move, or report on project requests. Too many project requests going on. But with that said, I will hand this over on to Angie to continue with the rest of today's webinar. Welcome, Angie.
Great. Thank you, Denise. And yes, we're going to be talking a lot about requests today. So let's go ahead and get started. Everyone should be now seeing the Project Insight dashboard. As part of your project management lifecycle, you may receive requests for projects from different departments within your organization or from your external customers. So this is not an actual project at this point. It is just a request to initiate a project. However, you still need to capture that request and manage it, but you may not necessarily create a project for it until it has gone through some analysis work and it's been reviewed by your stakeholders or sponsors and then approved. So Project Insight has the concept of project requests to help you with this. Now, when you receive a request for a project, you can capture the details about that request in a project request form. You are then able to assign that project request to a staff member so they can manage it, and you're also able to send it through an approval workflow or attach documents to it, such as a business case. Now, when it has been reviewed and determined that it is in fact a valid project that you will want to do because it's going to be a benefit to your organization or your customers, then you can easily create a project for it with a few simple clicks. Now, if you are someone that gets assigned project requests to manage, then you can display those requests right on your dashboard. And you can see that on our dashboard here in this project request section. So you can see the name of the request, and you can also see the status of it. Now, your project requests can have various statuses, and some of those are actually tied into approvals. So for example, this HR update request has been created in this system, and it's pending. So it's got a pending status assigned to it, while the change the office layout is in an approve or deny status. So somebody's actually got to go through and approve or deny it. And then these other ones, they're actually haven't had an initial haven't had an approval request initiated for it at all. So it hasn't actually been started yet. So you can have a look at those and see what they are and see those statuses right on your dashboard, and you can also actually click on the status text so that you can initiate the new business process for it as well. And we'll talk about that as we go through the project requests. All right, so you can approve a project request right from your dashboard. So you don't have to click anywhere in the system or go anywhere else. You can actually see that right here, this project request called Change the Office Layout has an approve or deny option over here, which means that you are approving or denying this project request. So we can go ahead and just click on that text, and we can enter in a comment. We could say, you know, yes, go ahead, or yes, it's reviewed or approved, or you could enter in information to communicate back to the person who assigned this to you. And we simply click on approved. Then what will happen is when your form refreshes, you'll see that it actually changed. So now instead of having that approve and deny texts, you could actually see the date and timestamp of when it was approved. So this project request is still assigned to you, but you can see right away by looking at your dashboard that it actually has been approved versus these other ones which still need to have an approval request sent, or the HR update, which an approval request has been sent, it just hasn't yet been approved, so it's in a pending state. Now for the request that was assigned to you, which doesn't already have an approval workflow created for it, you can create one just by clicking on the Create Approval Request option right again from your dashboard without even having to go anywhere on it. And that'll take you to your approval request form, but we're going to come back to that in a moment. So I'm just going to click our back icon to take us back to our dashboard. Now, if you already know all the details that you need to know about the project request, then it's easy just to click on this and create the approval. But sometimes you need to get a little bit more information about that project request. So if you need to do that, then what you can do is just click on the project request name. So let's click on Implement New Payroll module. So this takes you to the project request form, and from here you can view more details about the request. You can attach files, enter comments, and collaborate. And you can also initiate the approval request right from here as well. And you can see there's some text for doing that. So your workflow is built right into the form. And again, we're going to come back to here in a little bit, but at the top of the form is basically the main information about the request. But you can also click on the different sections to expand them out and also see additional information as well. So, and again, you just click on that section header to collapse it if you want to keep that information hidden. And related items, that's where you would see any attachments, such as documents that were attached to it as well. So that's displaying the project request and getting a little bit more information about the request itself. But we're going to back up a step again, and let's click our back icon, take us back again to our dashboard. And what you need to do, just like everything else in Project Insight, is before you can go and start creating project requests, you need to determine where you want your project requests stored. So it's the same like projects themselves or issues or anything like that, is you do need to set a place where you're going to store those project requests. And that's a functionality within Project Insight. So let's go ahead and expand our left navigation. And we want to click on the folder section to expand that. Now, a lot of organizations, what they'll do is they'll create a separate folder or even multiple folders. So if you had different departments submitting project requests, then you might set up a different project request folder for each department, and that'll all depend on, how many requests you get at one time and that kind of thing. So you'll want to figure out, like, do you want just one project request folder or do you need a couple of them? And you want to set up that folder. And in this case, we set up one at the very top level of our folder structure, and our system administrator has to do that. But we set up one called project requests, so it's pretty straightforward. We've got a folder for projects, one for templates, for archive, a couple of other things, but then we've also got one for project requests. So to see the project request, just go ahead and click on that, and then it takes you to that folder and shows you all the project requests that have been created in the system. Now what you can also do is you can set permissions on the different folders so that you're only giving those stakeholders access to those folders to view or add requests. So in that case, if you did have multiple different departments that you were managing requests from, and you didn't really want each department to see the other department's requests, or maybe you wanted them to view other departments' requests, but you don't want them to be able to add requests in their area, then you can set up permissions to support all of that. And it's very flexible, and you can set it up however you need to match your business process and with the permissions that you need to as well. And doing all of that is covered in some other training sessions. Now let's see how to add a project request now that we've got our location or our folder where we want to store that request set up. So we go to our standard Add menu option, and we're going to go and we're going to select Project Request. Now again, if you're setting up separate folders specifically for your project requests, your system administrator may configure Project Insight, so the only thing that you're able to add is a project request. And when you hover on this add icon, it doesn't bring up, it doesn't bring up any of these other options. So you can set it so it's just strictly set so only project requests can get added in this folder. So let's go ahead and click on Project Request. Now, if you've ever added a project in Project Insight, you're going to see a lot of the same fields available on the Project Add form as you see on the Project Request form. And the very first thing that you must enter is the name or the short description. And before I do that, I'm just going to collapse my left navigation so I can just focus on my Project Request form. So we're going to type in develop new customer website. So that's our request. So one of our departments, maybe our marketing department, is submitting a request to develop a new customer website. Now basically when you add a project request, the name by default is the only required field, and you can see that by the red asterisk next to it. However, of course it's recommended that you fill in as much of this other detail as possible. So you can optionally select a project template that you're going to base the project on if this request actually turns into a project. So we can click in the drop down for that and select one of our templates. That's optional. You don't have to set that, but it saves you some work later on if you do set it here. And then you can enter in the description of the request. So again, you want to provide as much information as possible about the project request. So we want to give the client self-service access to their data. So maybe that's the goal of this work on this project request. And again, it is likely that you're going to put this project request through an approval process. So you want to be entering as much details as you need to on the request so that people can make some decisions about it. So the next we want to click in the drop down for the type and select the type of request it is. So in this case, we'll say it's an information technology request. Again, this is optional, but it's very useful for reporting purposes. And you may or may not have noticed, but on the main form, which we can have a look at, or sorry, on our main dashboard, we actually had a chart set up by project request type. So that becomes important so we can see how many requests of each type are coming in from the different areas. Then we have a scheduled start date, and this is the date that you think the project should start on, or maybe another way of saying that is the date you would like it to start on. Again, this can be changed later on, but it's a good idea to record the date the requester wanted this, even though that may not eventually end up being the actual project start date. But this will give you an idea, and the others who are reviewing this project request is generally when your client or the requester wants this all to start. And again, that gives you more information to make decisions. Now, if you do know who the project managers are that are going to be assigned to this, then you can actually select one as well. So we've got just Andrea, so I'm going to leave that blank, but you could actually assign project managers at this point if you knew who they were going to be. And it's informational only, so the project managers don't have any additional functionality while this is still a request. It's just referential information only, so that you know who might be the project manager if this request does actually go forward as a project. You can also specify the sponsor of the request, and this is used especially if you're doing like internally facing projects. So you're doing projects for other departments or divisions within your own organization versus doing projects for external customers who you're billing and invoicing. So it's usually, sponsors are usually internal. Again, you can turn off some of these fields on the project request if you don't need them, or you can even rename them. So if you were doing external facing requests, so it's external customers outside of your organization, maybe you either hide this field because you don't need it, or you could change the terminology to something like an account manager. Maybe you want to record the account manager for that client. So again, very flexible. We'll choose Nick Office and then click on the white space to exit out of that drop down. And then the last one is the assign to. So you can assign this project request to a user so that they can start to manage it, because once you've recorded the request in the system, something has to happen to the request. Like, it has to go through your business process to get reviewed and then approved or denied or whatever may happen to it for your organization. So in this case, I'm actually going to assign it to myself because I'm the one that's going to manage it. I'm not only recording it, but I'm the one that's going to be responsible for moving it through the business process as well. So these are all the standard predefined data that you can enter about a project request. However, you can add your own custom fields as well to capture any additional details that you deem relevant to make a decision about whether or not to proceed with this request. And to see those fields, you can click on the Custom Fields tab. So for example, you may want to align all of your project requests to a strategic initiative or goal. So if you click in the drop down for that, you can see that there's a set of strategic initiatives that have already been set up and predefined, and we cover how to do all this in our custom fields training session, so you can go and watch that video on setting this all up if you need some more information on this. In a lot of cases on the project request, you will add a lot of custom fields because there might be a lot of information that you want to capture about this request that'll help you to make some decisions on it. Now, when you choose something in here, and let's say, well, it's going to improve profitability. And we could choose more than one if we wanted to because we set it up that way. So let's click on a couple and then click on the white space to exit out of the drop-down, and you can see that's the two strategic initiatives that this request matches to. And then you can also record other data as well, such as the expected business benefits. So if we're giving customers self-serve access to their own data, it's not only going to improve our profitability because we're not going to be spending time to do that work for the customer. They can do it themselves, so that's going to improve the profitability. It's also going to improve their response time because they can go and get the information themselves on demand instead of having to pick up the phone or send an email and wait for us to process it and that kind of thing. But the business benefits, I mean, maybe there's another one, it makes happier customers. And maybe the other one is you get better feedback. So you can record, that kind of information as well. And once you're doing the business benefits, this is actually like an HTML, so you can do some formatting in here. So I kind of typed in some dashes, but we can have the system put in bullets or numbering, or we can bold things or underline them. We can even change the color of text. So, we can do, there's quite a bit of flexibility in here, and it's almost like you're entering that information in a Word document at that point. So you could possibly replace some of your Word documents by adding in custom fields on your project request form. And of course, the benefit of that is being able to very easily report on that and have that information accessible to various people throughout your organization. All right, so the next thing we want to do is identify the company, contract, department, or group to which this request belongs. So to do that, we're going to click on our time, expense, and billing information tab. So remember, like, we have these various tabs for our project requests, and general is usually always the main set of information you add. Then you have those custom fields, and then time, expense, and billing is data that's applicable to that. Now, the first two fields that you have on here is the company and the company contract. And these are usually more applicable if you're doing customer-facing projects. So this is a request that's coming from an external customer, and perhaps they have some contracts already set up, and you want to record that kind of information. However, if you're doing internally facing projects, then you're more likely to fill in this other data, which is the department that it's requesting. So you could click in that and choose who the department is or which group it is that's requesting it as well. And again, your system administrator sets up all of this data prior to using the system. So it'll be pre-populated with the data that's specific to your organization. So all of these fields are optional, so you're only going to fill in the ones that are relevant to what you are doing. And again, you can go in and you could even hide some of these. So if you were doing only internal ones and basically all you cared about was the department who requested it, then you could go in and hide the groups or the company or even the contract on this form so you don't even see it. Now at this project request stage, you may also have some top-down or high-level budget information that you want to capture. Now this data can come from different sources, and again, this is going to depend on your business process. But it may come from the requesters, because a lot of time when people submit a project request, they're going to have an idea in their heads about how much they think it's going to cost. Or if you're actually billing a client for the work, it's how much you think the requester thinks that they're going to be billing the client. And this data may also come, let's go ahead and check. So this is all on the Target Budget Information tab. And this data may also come from other estimating processes or functions, or even other departments. And it could be wildly off, or it could be reasonably accurate. Like it really depends where that's coming from. A lot of cases, if you're doing requests for other departments in your organization and they've got an idea of, hey, we want a new customer website, and they'll think the cost is going to be 50% of what it's actually going to turn out to be. It's a good idea to kind of capture those metrics and data, because again, it's all used to help you make decisions about this request and moving this request forward to a project. Now, a lot of times on this form, you're just going to enter in totals. So if that's the case, we're not going to enter a breakdown by hours and rate and time, and so this is labor and other non-labor costs. We're just going to put in a number. We're just going to put in a total cost we think it's going to take. So if you want to do that, just click on the Auto Calculate Target Values and then type in your total. So maybe maybe somebody thinks this is going to cost $50,000 to do. If you do leave that auto calculate target values while entering, then what you can do, instead of entering this total, you can start to break down the labor and non-labor costs. So maybe it's $45,000 for labor and $5,000 for expenses. And you'll see as soon as I tab out of those fields, it's automatically calculating this total amount. And you could even break down your labor to hours and an average rate. So maybe we're going to say it's 450 hours. Let's erase this one because we're not going to type that in. We're going to let the system calculate it. So we're going to say 450 hours at a rate of $100 per hour. That gives us our $45,000. And again, that's all automatically calculated. So It takes the hours times the rate, gives us our time or our labor value. Then we have our non-labor value, which is our expenses, and you just manually type that in. And then the time and expenses are added to give you your total. So you can enter how much data you want or not on this form. Now, if you're billing customers, then you may also want to record this other one called target budget billable. So target budget is the cost. So what is it going to cost you to do this work? And the target budget billable is what you're going to bill the clients for the work. And again, the same concept applies. You can just put in a total, or you can break it down a little bit further. So let's say we're going to bill them $55,000 for the labor portion, and we put some markup on the non-labor, so we're in total going to charge them $62,000. So now that you have your target budget information that you or your requesters think this project is either going to cost or be billed for, then that's all captured and it's all reportable as well. Now, if you don't use these target budget billable amounts, just leave them blank. You don't have to enter anything in here. And again, you could even turn them off, and so you don't have them displaying on the form if it's not something that you use. And all that's covered. It's the training sessions. That's the culture and interface labels training session if you want to see how you do all of that. All right, so that's all the data that you could enter in for a request. So now just click on the Save button to go ahead and actually save that in the system. And you can see that it's now listed as Develop New Customer Website. Now, a very common practice for our customers is to set up auto alerts on our project request folders so that others will be notified automatically when a project request is created, and not just because they have been assigned to manage the request. So for example, if you did set up folders for each of your departments, and you could actually train the subject matter experts in each of those departments on how to enter these requests themselves. So in that circumstance, they may not know who they're going to assign the project request to, so they just leave the assignee blank. But then we'll set up notifications on that folder so that a certain group or certain individuals get a notification whenever your subject matter experts create a new project request, so that those people can then go and review that project request and assign it or take ownership of it. So to create alerts on folders, what we do is we go to this Auto Alerts, and we click on, or sorry, that's not Auto Alerts, that's our Tools menu option, and within there there's a sub-menu called Auto Alerts. So go ahead and click on that. Now, in the entity type drop-down, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select a group, because we want to notify a group of people that a project request was created in this folder. Now, again, your system administrators can go and set up whatever types of groups that you need. So they could go and do something like set up a business analyst group, and all the people that are associated with that group will get a notification whenever a new request is created. Now, in our case, we've got administrators, HR, and project managers. So let's just choose project managers just for the sake of it. Then in the after event, so this is the event that triggers the notification, and it defaults to item created. And that's fine for what we're doing. We want to know whenever a new project request is created. Then we can also filter by item and object type. So if we click on the drop down in that, you can see all the different item types that are available in Project Insight. And we're going to select Project Request. And then we're going to go ahead and click Save. Then you'll see that notification is listed, and basically what will happen now is that anytime a new project request is created, and it doesn't matter who creates it, but as long as it's created in our project request folder, then the project managers group is going to get a notification about that. And then you will have some processes set up that group will follow to assign responsibility of that request. All right, so let's go and click our back icon. And since you assigned that project request to yourself, it is going to display in your project requests list on your dashboard. So let's go ahead and click on My Insight. take us back to our dashboard. And, we can see our 5 different project requests that have been assigned to us. And we can see the develop new customer website. And it hasn't had an approval request created for it. It's just been recorded in the system. So one very common process that happens is to have a project request reviewed and approved by different stakeholders. So even though I've been assigned the management of this project request, I may not necessarily be the one that's doing the approval of the request. But I do need to go and set up the approval workflow so I can get the appropriate approval for the request. So let's go and click on Create Approval Request. And that takes us into our approval request form. Now, if we didn't want to approve it right away, if I'm just going to click the back icon and go back to our dashboard, if I didn't want to do that right away, but what I wanted to do is because I've been assigned it, maybe I didn't assign it to myself, maybe somebody else assigned it to me. If I want to go review the details, I just click on the name of it. And again, it takes me back to my form where I can start to review, all the details about the request. So if I click in the details section, I can see those target values that we entered in and the groups assigned to it and the totals for billable and cost. We can see the description and so on again, and related items would be any kind of documents that got attached to it. And again, you can just click on those various sections to collapse them if you didn't want to see all that information on your form. Now the other thing that you can do is collaborate on the request. So we are automatically on our comments section, so we can go and add in a new comment. So we're going to enter in a comment. Maybe it's something like our competitors do this or something. Maybe we did a little bit of analysis and it looked like our competitors allow this, so we probably want to do it. You can start collaborating on this request and start capturing everybody's comments and notes in one central place. So we enter in our comment and click Save, and then that comment shows. And you can see that it date and time stamps it and also puts the image of the person who created the comment. And if you need some more information about entering comments, you can attend our social collaboration training session. Now we've also talked a lot about attaching a file to a project request. So maybe there is some other documentation that comes along with the project request. So you can actually attach those as well. And we do that. We can do it a couple different ways. We can just go to the add icon while we're on this form, and we can say to add like a file or an article or an HTML page, or we can start a separate discussion or shortcuts to other systems. And again, this is going to all be available depending on what your system administrator has set up. But if we also click on the related items section to expand that out, we can click on the add icon right there as well. So let's actually add in a file. And then it brings up our file add window, and all you need to do is go and click on browse and browse to the file that you want to attach to this project request. So let's see if we've got something quick we can bring up here. Let's attach a specifications document and save that. Then you'll see that in this related items section, as you add it, it gets listed. And then you can do some things like you can view it. So you can click on our viewer option, and this will allow us to view the document right here without exiting Project Insight. You see there's not much in this document, or you can download the document so you could edit it. So you have a lot of flexibility in here. And all that, again, is covered in our document sharing and management training sessions. Now, if you also wanted to add in, an article or HTML page that you set up, or a discussion, or a shortcut, those are very common things you might do in here as well. Now, you're also able to quickly create an approval workflow for this request simply by clicking on this Create Approval Request option right here while you're on the form. So we've seen this a couple of times. We haven't gone into details. There is a specific training session as well for routing items for approvals and electronic signature. So we do go into a lot of detail in that training session about filling out this form. So I'm just going to kind of cover it in a high level here. So basically the name of the approval request comes up, and it's our project request name and then appended with the word approval request. So you know just by looking at it, it's an approval request for this project request. You can enter in additional description or notes or messages to the people that are going to be approving it, and then filling out some of this other fields. And down here you'll see the items to approve, and you can see it's the Develop New Customer website project request that you're going to be approving. Then we can click on the Approvers tab and select who the approvers are going to be, and you can select multiple ones if you needed to. I am actually going to remove these, and I'm actually going to set myself as the approver so you can see how this whole process works. So I'm going to say I'm the approver. I mean, normally you're not going to do that, but just to show you how it all works, I'm going to set myself as the approver. And then if you did have multiple ones, so let's add in a couple other people, you can do things like say all approvers must approve, or just have one of the people listed approved. But if all of them must approve, you can also route it sequentially. So it's, again, quite flexible about what you want to do for the approvals. So I'm going to leave it as either Andrea, myself, or Jill can approve it. Then let's click on Notifications. And this is where you can set up who gets notifications as each step is approved. So in this case, the final approval, so when it gets finally approved, it's going to be myself because I'm creating it. So that's good. Let's leave it as that. And then you just want to make sure you've got Activate and Send Approval Request checked, and then you want to click Save. Now once you do that, a couple of things happen. Your approval request gets listed down in our related items so you can see it. And also in our main section, it says there has been an approval request created. And if you want, you can click on the Approvals tab, and that'll give you a little bit more information about the approval. So we can see right again on this form that the status is pending. Then the people that you set as the approvers are now going to start to see that approval on their work list and approvals lists on their dashboard, and they'll also start to get notifications about this. Now, once this project request has actually gone through your approval process business cycle, you can actually create a project for it right from this form with one click. And you can do that by clicking here and saying Create Project. Now, of course, not everybody can create a project in Project Insight. You have to have special permissions assigned to you. Like you have to be a project creator before you can actually do this. But I have that role. So I'm able to automatically create an actual project from that request. So when I did that, you'll notice that a lot of the data on our project add form is already filled in with the information from the project request form. So the names brought over, the templates, the description, the sponsors, the type, the information on the time, expense, and billing tab, the target budget information as well. So everything that you entered in the standard fields on the project request get brought over into your project. And of course, you can go in and change them if required. So if you wanted to change the name slightly or just add some more data to the description, you can do all that. Now it's important to note that the project request and the project are two different forms and two different data entities. Once you have created a project from the request, that request is still there. It doesn't get changed. Well, mostly it doesn't get changed, but you're going to see that in a moment. So what that create project function does is create a brand new project and copy the standard data from the request form over into the project form. Now, if we did go back and click on the time, expense, and billing information, and you see, the department and the group got brought over, because we had filled those in on the request. But there is some additional information that's available on the project itself. So that obviously that information can't get populated from the request because it wasn't available on the request form. Now, there is some additional data as well on the project, such as like the scorecard, that you don't have on a project request. So this is what you can use to score the projects and be able to give it a priority amongst all your other projects. And we cover that in detail in the Prioritize and Score Your Projects training sessions. Now again, remember you're able to change any of this information on any of the tabs before you go ahead and save this project. And because the project request and the project are two separate forms, even if you change the information on here, the original information or original data is still retained in your project request form. Like that doesn't go away. So you can change it here and not worry about losing that original reference information. Now you'll notice there is no custom fields tab on the project form. And this is different from the project request. So if you set up custom fields on the project request, those custom fields are specific to the request and not the project. So they don't get brought over into the project. And the reason for this is that different information is captured at the project request stage than at the project stage. And you don't want to be, you don't want to be replicating that data all over the place. Like you just want to capture it once in one place. You don't want to duplicate data where it's not necessary. Now these other fields are used specifically in the project, so that's why they're brought over. But the custom fields, they're specific to the request and for you to move that request through the business process. Once it becomes a project, it's going to go through the project process. So you can set up custom fields to capture additional project data, but it's separate from that request data. And again, all the request data is still retained in the system against the project request. Now, one of the other different things you'll see on here is this parent item. So because we initiated the create project from a project request folder, it's thinking that's where we're going to store our project, is in that project request folder. But in most cases, organizations will change where you want the project stored. So in this case, we've actually got a projects folder. So we're going to click on that, and we don't want our project created in our requests folder. We want our project created in our projects folder. So we want to change that. You can always move it later on if you do happen to put it in the wrong folder and the system is set to let you do that. And, if you did leave it in the requests folder and tried to save it, but projects were set up not to be allowed in that requests folder, then it's going to not let you save it there anyway. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, there is one other data element on our project form that is specific to the project request, and because we're creating this project from a request. And that's called Move Project Request under New Project. So if this option is checked, which it is by default, then when you save the project request form will be moved from its project request folder to the project itself, which means it gets associated under the project as a related item, and it also gets moved to the same place that the project is stored. So even if you do this, it's important to note that you can still report on all the project requests, no matter where they're located. So it doesn't matter if you leave it in your requests folder or you move it over so it's associated under your project. You can still go run reports on it. So let's go ahead and click Save to save this project. And once you do this, it actually does take you back to the project request form. So we're still on the request, and you can tell that by our request icon. But now it's telling us that the project that got created from this request is our Develop New Customer Website project. And you can also see that down here in our related items. Now, when you automatically created a project from the project request by doing that function, one other thing also happened, and that is the project request got closed automatically, and we can see that by this state on our project request form. You can see it's set to closed. So when you first create a project, the state will be open, and it remains in an open state until you either close it manually or the system automatically closes it because you created a project from it. So if you are assigned a project request, it will stay on your list of requests that are assigned to you and that you're responsible to work on until it gets closed. So you will want to close requests when they're done so that they're no longer an active work item for you. Now, again, if you created a project from the request automatically, the state automatically gets set for you. But you can manually change the state basically by clicking on the text. So you can see that I can reopen it again. Or if I click on the open text, it changes it to closed. So if you decided not to create a project from this project request, when you decided it wasn't of high enough business value, or you just didn't have enough resources to do it right now, or whatever that reason may be, you can still close it. And obviously you want to add in probably some comments about why it didn't become a project, but you will want to make sure that you close it so that it does get removed from your active work list. All right, so now to see how everything looks, because we did automatically move this request to be associated with the project, let's expand our left navigation and click on our project requests folder. And that project request is no longer in this folder. So it got moved automatically out of this folder. And one kind of tip here you may want to do is have a closed project request. So if it doesn't get created as a project, you may want to move it out of this folder as well. So these are all kind of like your active ones. And again, it'll keep your list smaller and put all of your closed ones that were closed that didn't become a project in their own separate folder. So your active work is you're managing it and keeping it. Otherwise, this is going to end up becoming pretty big over time if you close a lot of requests that don't become projects. So that's just kind of a tip. But in this case, we did actually create a project from the request and we said to move it. So it's taken it right out of our project requests folder. But if we go to our projects folder, and you can see we have our develop new customer website project because that got created. And if we click on the arrow next to it, you actually can see the project request. So it gets moved and attached to the project. And so that's also a great way to keep your project requests folder as just kind of your active ones or ones you're being worked on. Now to view it from within the actual project itself, let's go ahead and click on the project name. And then we can go to the Views menu option and click on Status. And then let's click on the Related Items section to expand it out. And there's where you can see that project request as well. Now the final topic we're going to cover in today's session is reporting on project requests. So, you've done a great job. You've set up your project requests and you've gone in and you've added in some custom fields so you can make sure that you're capturing all the data that you need in order to make decisions about those requests. But what you want to do next is report on them. So let's click on the Reports menu option and we'll collapse our left navigation again. And then you want to make sure you click on the Projects section. And it's in here in this Projects section where it says Project Request Reports. So this is where you're going to create Project Request Reports. So go ahead and click on Create Project Request Report. And the first thing that you can do is that you can set the date range of the project request. And again, setting these date ranges is all covered in quite a bit of detail in our reporting training sessions. But basically you can set dynamic dates so it automatically switches to that dynamic date, or you can enter in specific dates and hard code in some dates, or you can set all dates. So give me project requests with all dates. Then you can choose to include either just open requests or open and closed requests. So remember, we did close that one project request that we turned into an actual project. So let's do both of them so we can see what that looks like. Then let's click on our project request filtering options to expand that out. And you can see in here you can report or filter by the type of request it is, who the project managers were that were assigned, or who the sponsors were. And then just click on the section again to collapse it. And remember that even if you collapse the section on report, it does remember any settings that you put in there, so they don't get removed, they just get hidden. You can also do user filtering, so you could choose to see all project requests were created by certain users or updated by certain users. Again, we'll click on that section to collapse it. We can click on the company and contract filtering options to expand that section out, and we could, if we were doing this for external clients or companies, we could report based on that. Now the custom field section, let's click on that to expand it. So in this case, we set up a custom field called strategic initiative. So we could, again, filter by only those requests that are going to improve response time. So you can do reporting on any of those custom fields that you set up, but I'm going to remove that because I actually want a listing of everything at the end of the day. And then you can go into your column selection options and choose the data that you want to print on the report. You can also set up some grouping and subtotaling, and you can also do some charts. And again, all of that's covered in some other training sessions. So let's go ahead and run this report. And now you can see a list of all of our requests that came in. And you can see things like the template, the type, the scheduled start date, the department that requested it, the project managers, sponsors, groups, and so on. So you can run that report and you can start to get some metrics about things like how many requests that came in, how many requests by department came in. We could also do some things like, I don't think we have the state on here, so if we click back on our display options icon and we want to add in our state, so let's add that back up here by type and run our report. We could see which ones were opened and closed. And you could also do some things like you'll have the comments that you entered in about why it was closed if it didn't get turned into a project. Or you can also do things like, I think you can put the project on here too, so let's put that on there. So you can see, for example, this one got closed because it got turned into a project. But you may have some other ones that got closed and the project will be blank, which means they, for whatever reason, they weren't approved as actually being a project. And of course, you can save that report so you can easily run it again. Also, you can do things like put it on your dashboard if you wanted to. And if I click back on my insight, I also created this one up here. It says report project requests by type. So I actually created a pie chart that shows me that I have 3 project requests for information technology, 1 for operations, and 1 for professional services. So you're able to create some charts or graphs for easy viewing and communication of information as well from any project request that you enter. All right, so that brings us to the end of our agenda items for this session. If anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and type those into your chat box. And in the meantime, I'm going to hand this back over to Denise for some closing slides. Denise.
Thank you, Angie. All right, so for those of you on social media, I'd like to invite you to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media channels. We are on Twitter. Our handle is @ProjectInsight. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for the latest news and Project Insight. If you're not already a Project Insight user and would like to learn more, please feel free to contact us via phone, email, or you can request your demo at projectinsight.net. In our Project Insight community, you'll find many recorded videos and webinars for you to watch and learn from. You can sign up for your next product training or IT methodology training or project management training. So that's all we have for you today. We'd like to thank Angie for a great session. And of course, we'd like to thank our audience for your time, as usual. And we hope to see you next time. Thank you so much, and have a great day.